Edward Harrigan, sometimes called Ned Harrigan, was an Irish-American actor, singer, dancer, playwright, lyricist and theatre producer who, together with Tony Hart, formed one of the most celebrated theatrical partnerships of the 19th century. His career began in minstrelsy and variety but progressed to the production of multi-act plays full of singing, dancing and physical comedy, making Harrigan one of the founding fathers of modern American musical theatre. Life and career. Harrigan was born in New York but made his first stage appearance in 1867 at the Olympic of San Francisco, Melodeon, as that city's variety theaters were then known. A brief partnership with comic Sam Rickey was followed by a 14-year stage career with Tony Hart, whom he met in Chicago in 1870. Although Harrigan wrote the lyrics and stage patter, the diminutive Hart's charm and singing talent played a large role in the duo's success. Harrigan and Hart went in 1871 to Boston, where they had the first big success at John Stetson's Howard Athenaeum. They then moved on to New York, where they first worked with Tony Pastor before beginning a long run at Josh Hart's Theatre Comique. By the mid-1870s they began moving from the variety show toward musical theatre. Harrigan's sketches on the Comique's crowded bill featured comic Irish, German and black characters drawn from everyday life on the streets of New York. The breakthrough hit was the 1873 song and sketch, The Mulligan Guard, a lampoon of an Irish neighborhood militia, with music by David Brem, who would become Harrigan's musical director and father-in-law. It became the signature piece, and they featured it in many of the slapstick skits and plays. In 1876, Harrigan took over the comic himself, along with Hart and manager Martin Hanley. By 1878, with the Mulligan Guard Picnic, Harrigan and Hart settled down on Broadway and performed in 17 of the shows over the next 7 years. Though still broad and farcical, these shows featured music that was integrated with a more literary storyline, together with the dialogue and dance, and the shows began to resemble modern musical comedy. Harrigan wrote the stories and lyrics, and Brem read the music. Although the plays gradually became longer as more songs, dances, and stage business was added, the tickets remained the same price. Harrigan and Hart's comedy was about everyday people, and so it was fitting that working folk were able to afford to fill up the seats. These shows were very popular, especially with New York's immigrant-based lower and middle classes, who were delighted to see themselves comically depicted on stage. The action of the plays took place in downtown Manhattan and concerned real-life problems, such as interracial tensions, political corruption, and gang violence, all mixed with broad, street-smart comedy, puns and ethnic dialects. Harrigan played the politically ambitious Irish saloon owner, Dan Mulligan, and Hart played the African-American washerwoman, Rebecca Eller. One of Harrigan's most popular plays with the Mulligan Guard series, The Mulligan Guard's Ball, shows off the smooth juxtaposition of the comedy, musicality, and a healthy dose of humanity that made Harrigan's plays so distinctive. Full of laughable chaos and Harrigan hilarity, the Irish militia and black militia within the act butt heads in a satirical whirlwind of dance, stage violence, and buffoonery. The New York Herald compared the Mulligan series to the Pickwick Papers by Charles Dickens, and one devotee wrote, "America has produced nothing more national, more distinctly its own, than these plays of the Irish in New York." People spoke of Ned Harrigan as the American Molière. Although the theatre comic was eventually shut down for financial reasons, Harrigan announced in 1881 that they would build a fresh and elegant new theatre comic several blocks further north on Broadway. The building they renovated was originally the home of the Church of the Messiah but had hosted many other theatres throughout the years. However, this theatre was not to last. It burned to the ground in 1884. After the theatre collapsed, so did the partnership. Harrigan had married Annie Braham, David's daughter, on November 18, 1876. The family continued in his footsteps, as son William Harrigan, daughter Neda Harrigan, and granddaughter Anne Connolly all became Broadway performers. However, Harrigan's habit of hiring relatives soured his partnership with Hart. In May 1885, 5 months after the fire, Harrigan and Hart appeared on Broadway together for the last time. Hart's health deteriorated, and he died at age 36 in 1891, while Harrigan opened up his Harrigan's Theatre in 1890 on Herald Square. 23 of his plays achieved runs of more than 100 performances each on Broadway. Harrigan continued writing plays and performing until his last public appearance on March 16, 1910. Harrigan died in 1911. Harrigan and Hart. In 1985, a musical celebrating the partnership, Harrigan and Hart, opened on Broadway. The show has a book by Michael Stewart, lyrics by Peter Walker, and music by Max Showalter is based on the book. The Merry Partners by Elisha Khan Jr. and material found by Ned Harrigan. Logan. Harry Grainer portrayed Harrigan, Mark Hamill played Hart, and Joe Layton directed. Frank Rich of the New York Times found the show dull and aimless, and so did audiences, as it closed after 25 previews and 4 regular performances. Works: 1877, Old Lavender; 1878, The Mulligan Guard Picnic; 1879, The Mulligan Guard's Ball; 1880, The Mulligan Guard's Surprise, which included the hit song Whist. The Bogeyman, words by Harrigan and music by David Braham. 1881, The Major; 1882, Squatter Sovereignty; 1883, The Mulligan's Silver Wedding; 1883, Cordelia's Aspirations; 1886, The Leather Patch; 1888, Waddy Guggen; 1890, Riley and the 400.